In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Humans of Hope, Inspiring Stories, hosted by Kerrie. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerrie, the founder of Stories of Hope Worldwide, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find the strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode. I'm Kerrie, and tonight's guest is Mike McCarthy. Mike is a former journalist from the UK that was with the BBC and Sky News. And tonight he's sharing his very personal story, a message that was penned by his son Ross just moments before he took his life. Welcome to Stories of Hope, Mike.
Thank you for inviting me.
Before we start, I would like to say to you how sincerely sorry I am for your loss.
Thank you.
And I know that you have a very, very important message that you want to share with others so that other people don't have to go through the kind of thing that you're going through. And that was very much the desire of your son as well, wasn't it?
It was. Ross died just over a year ago, and he wrote a long letter to his family, a farewell letter, in which he addressed each one of us. And he asked his family to carry on campaigning for better mental health. It was something that Ross felt very strongly about. In his words, he said, fight for the support, it's just not there. And what he meant by that is that he suffered with severe depression for 10 years and had tried everything. He was a warrior, he was a fighter, he tried everything to reach salvation and to make himself better. And after that 10 years, he went to the National Health Service here in the UK and asked them for therapy. They put him on a 6-month waiting list, and he died 2 weeks into that wait. And we'll never know for sure, but we assume that he just thought that, you know, when the crunch comes, the help really isn't there.
Yeah.
Despite what he said and despite everything that I and my family have gone through, we believe that there is hope. And, you know, we're trying to honour Ross's name and his memory by doing what little bit we can to try and prevent others from ending up in the same dark place that he and hundreds of thousands of others end up in.
And what was Ross like growing up as a kid?
He was happy. He was mischievous. He had a brother and a sister who he adored, and they adored him. He was funny. He was very cute, and we just loved him. You know, we couldn't have loved him more. He was happy and had a good childhood. You know, just as I'm talking to you now, I'm seeing images of him playing in the garden at parties, and, you know, playing out with his friends. And yeah, he was just such a wonderful kid. And he started to have problems as he grew older when he got into adolescence.
Yeah.
And we talked about his depression and anxiety a lot. We're very close as a family. And he just sort of grew up to be a great individual. He was a good man, you know, not the kind of person that you would pick out as someone who was, I guess, vulnerable or prone to wanting to end their own life. When he was out with his mates, he was the life and soul of the party. We just had so many laughs. It was just, you know, such a funny guy, and he loved us. He loved his fiancée. They were due to get married, but couldn't get married because of COVID. They had a little boy, Charlie, who's now 4, soon to be 5, and he doted on Charlie.
Wow. When did you start to see the cracks appearing. Did you really notice any signs back then? I know you said he'd struggled for around 10 years, but something that I often talk about, because I do a lot of work with men's mental health, and it's often the people that we can suspect the least that are struggling the most. And I mean, society is very good at judging from an outward appearance and saying that, oh, that person wouldn't be suffering. But we can be so wrong, can't we?
Absolutely. And I think that's such an important point. Ross was very good at pretending. I think that he didn't want to, as he saw it, inflict his misery on other people, on his family. And again, I'm seeing events that we went on as a family, picnics, for example, and Ross would pretend to be happy for the sake of everyone else. There was sometimes a look in his eye that I could identify, not always, but even though we were open and discussed his problems, he did wear a mask. And this is so often the case that people who feel like that, I think, don't want to feel that they're in any way a burden on someone else, or want to drag down the mood and that kind of thing. It's a hard thing sometimes to get through to someone who's feeling that way, because they do become very good at masking it.
Yeah. What do you think Ross would want to say to all the young men of the world right now?
I think he would just say, stay, find somebody who loves you, and talk. I think that's the key thing, to talk. And although, as I say, we spoke a lot, I think a lot of men in particular don't. There's a stigma attached, not just to the sort of idea of suicide, but just generally in terms of vulnerability with men. The phrase, I'm guessing you have the same phrase in Australia that we have here, which is man up, which basically means take it on the chin, suppress it, shut up, don't talk about it. And I think that sort of indicates in society the image of the ideal man, this sort of strong, silent type, if you like, who will take the blows, but is not expected to share them. I think men, can talk and do talk, but I think society doesn't encourage that. So I think Ross would just say, talk and love. He left a message for Charlie, his little son. And I think, the message to Charlie in a way is a sort of, message to everybody. Ross just said, be brave, be strong, be anything that you want to be. And, I guess that was his message, not just to Charlie, but to anybody who's struggling.
Yeah. And it's a very, very pertinent point that you made there about the misconception about how men should be. And I actually just wrote an article for a website called Saving Brothers, and the article was titled Real Men Do Cry. And it was talking about how men need to feel like they can open up and share how they're feeling, and that it's okay to cry, it's okay to journal and write stuff down, it's okay to seek help. And it's breaking down that stigma, isn't it? That I mean, you've worked as a journalist for years. You've seen what the media tells men that they should be over and over again, probably. And it's something that I'm sure Ross, would want everyone to know, that there's no one stereotype for men. All men are different, and all men should be allowed to be treated as individuals.
Sure. And, all men cry.
Yeah.
Heavyweight boxers cry,
Yeah.
rugby players cry, and yet we have to somehow pretend that we don't. And that's wrong. I think
Yeah.
society's got that badly wrong. The world has changed so much in my lifetime, for men and for women. And I think in some ways the expectations on men are rooted in the past. And, it's very hard to be the provider, the alpha male, the shoulder to cry on, and the guy who cries. It's sometimes all of those things don't necessarily fit easily together.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've done over the past year is that I've started what we call Talk Club. That's on the mug there.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah, this is it's at Sheffield United. I live in the city of Sheffield in Yorkshire, and got together with the football club, and they've got a fantastic community foundation that do an enormous amount of charity work. And so together we've set up a talking group for men. It's just a safe, non-judgmental, confidential space every week, 6 to 8 in the evening on a Wednesday evening. And we get together, and it's basically, it's an excuse, if that's the right word, to open up. Don't man up. Don't bottle up. Open up. And I'm sort of, really pleased with the way that it's going. It's been going for about 6 months now. And I've spoken to Sheffield United's great rival on the other side of the city, Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. And they have agreed to join together in unity to send out the message that, some things are more important even than football. And, we're hoping to sort of expand it further, and we've got good plans for it. This is a national charity, and I've just opened sort of local branches, but I'm hoping to help spread the word.
Oh, that's awesome. It wouldn't be great if we could start that over in Australia.
Well, it's such a simple but effective thing. And, you have to be there and to see it, to appreciate how well it works. And it really is as simple as it sounds. Talk Club. Actually, it's Talk Club in brackets Listen Club, because we just do 4 rounds every week. The guys come in and we take a score 0 to 10, 10 being the best. And how are you feeling out of 10 and why? So we avoid the sort of blokish thing like, how are you? I'm fine. Okay. And then just sort of moving on to talking about football or whatever. So it's how are you out of 10? What have been the highlights of the past week? And we try to move towards a positive outcome. What are the things that you can do in the forthcoming week to help yourself? What are the obstacles that you have to overcome, and how might you better be able to sort of deal with those? And then we take a checkout score before the guys leave. And invariably, it's, at least 1 or 2 points higher, if not more. And it's that simple, and it works.
Oh, that's great.
I'd recommend it, Australia.
Yeah. Well, we can try and get that going over here. That would be great.
Actually, do you know what? You've just made me, I'm just thinking about this, Kerrie. I've just realised, I think actually there is already one, come to think of it, in Sydney. I think that's right. Yeah.
Sydney. I come from Sydney.
Oh, well, the word's spreading already across
Wow.
the globe. So there you go.
I'm up in Queensland now, but I used to live in Sydney. So maybe we can talk later and find out where that is and see if we can get one happening up here in Queensland. Because where we are on the Sunshine Coast, the suicide rate is 9% above the national average. So it's a real problem up here.
I think the thing is as well globally that, everybody these days accepts that suicide is preventable. It's almost always preventable. In our country, the government accepts that, the health service accepts that. So my question is, why aren't we preventing it? If suicide is preventable, why aren't we preventing it? Because those statistics go up a bit, they go down a bit, they go up a bit, et cetera, but basically they're staying the same. And you have to ask yourself, what is it that we're doing or not doing at the moment to help reduce these figures? Because I strongly believe that we can reduce them. I think we've got to sort of look at mental health as being every bit as important, if not more important, than physical health. There is no health without mental health. And I think there has to be parity between the two in terms of attention, in terms of spending, in terms of education. Where's the political debate about suicide? Suicide is the biggest killer of young people in the United Kingdom below the age of 35, men and women.
Wow.
The biggest killer, not COVID, not cancer, not road accidents, not drugs, not war. It's suicide. So where's the conversation? Where's the political debate? Where's the media coverage? Where are the lectures in colleges and universities?
Yeah.
Where's the education in the classroom? It's like some big secret that's lurking in a dark corner. And if Ross has given me motivation for anything, it's to drag suicide out of that murky little corner. Let's talk about it. Let's be open about it. Let's have a healthy conversation about it, because we're not going to improve those figures if we don't even talk about it.
100%. And that's why I'm so grateful that we're talking about it tonight, as hard as it is, that we're talking about it tonight. And people need to hear from family members who have been through it.
I think so. And, I've spoken to, after Ross died, I tried to make it my task to educate myself about sort of mental health and suicide. I'm no expert, I never was. I'm primarily just a bereaved dad, but I've spoken to hundreds of others now. I've lost count. And the message that comes from every single one of them seems to be loud and clear that, I'm proud of my son. I don't believe that he did the right thing. I don't believe that that is ever the solution, but I'm proud of him. I'm not going to be quiet about it. He was a great individual, and this world is a poorer place without him. And that goes for the hundreds of thousands who take their own lives and the families that I've spoken to. I think that, the time is right to open up about these things, and that people don't want to feel ashamed, and they shouldn't feel ashamed. Why should they? Ross had what I call cancer of the mind. If he'd had terminal cancer and went to hospital asking for help, they wouldn't have told him, come back in 6 months' time. And actually, what Ross had was terminal. Okay, much more difficult to establish that as from a medic's point of view. My point is that if somebody is suicidal, then nobody should be told, go away for 6 months and let's see if you're suicidal in 6 months' time, because that person, as was the case with Ross, may well not be here.
No, it's unbelievable, isn't it? When was the first time that Ross put his hand up for help?
It was a slow process, I think, really. He actually tried to take his life the year before, and we did, I think, all that we could. And again, this is, one of the things that families go through in the aftermath of a suicide, is this relentless questioning, could I have been there more? Could I have said, or put things differently? Why didn't he pick up the phone to me that night? So many questions, but yeah, it was a gradual thing, really. And as I say, he fought and fought and fought. He tried just about every medication. He tried, physical exercise. He was quite a sporty guy. Loved football and tennis. He loved to go swimming with Charlie. COVID lockdown had an effect because he couldn't do any of those things. As I said before, he couldn't get married because of COVID. So Charlotte, his fiance's wedding dress is buried with him. But yeah, it's. I'd like to think that if Ross were here now, he would say that we couldn't have done more as a family. But we'll never know for sure because we won't get that opportunity to speak to them again. But I've also spoken to lots of people who have attempted suicide and who've survived purely by chance in many cases. And what they always tell me is that, at that moment, that it's not a rejection of loved ones or family. It's just that they want rid of the pain. I know that there is a way, that there are things that we can do. There is so much help out there. And, despite what's happened to us, we do have hope. And we're launching a big project here in the UK next year called Baton of Hope.
That's right. Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, this is, we're taking the baton around the UK. Basically, the message is that we all have a responsibility to help people who may be suicidal, whether that's just a sort of hand on the shoulder or an extra text to your mate, or whether, you're a sort of a politician, a member of the government or whatever, we all have some responsibility, a role that we can play. So the baton is passing on and, sending out that message that we have responsibility and that there is hope. We hope that it will be a symbol of all the voices that are no longer here, that we can no longer hear, but also a message of hope for anybody who finds themselves in the same position, that we are listening, that we are talking about it now, we are opening up, we are going to tackle this. So that's something that we're hoping to do next year.
Oh, that's so wonderful, and I hope that I can help you carry that around Australia.
That would be great. Yeah, we've suddenly gone global.
That's right.
I mean, it was supposed to be just the UK, but
Oh, okay.
why not? It's why not? We're hoping that eventually the baton will rest here in London in the Houses of Parliament as a reminder to the policymakers and legislators as they go about their daily business that you have a great responsibility. Don't forget all these hundreds of thousands of people. Don't forget that it's the biggest killer of young people in your nation. Yeah, it's just sort of opening up debate, getting awareness out there, and hopefully through that awareness, get people talking. And by getting people talking, we banish the stigma because there's a lot of stigma around the subject, as you know.
Oh, yes, that's right. And I shared with you a little bit before about why this story is very important to me, because at 18, I planned to end my own life as well. And when COVID hit, I became very depressed and my own mental health really suffered. And I became really frightened because I hadn't picked up a drink for 38 years. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And I was thinking about drinking again. Anyway, something that came out of that was I signed up and did mental health first aid training because I wanted to learn more and I wanted to find a purpose again, because my purpose had been cut off because we couldn't meet together. And, like Ross, I was a very social person, and not being able to connect with people was really huge. And I know that so many people around the world battled because of that lack of human connection. So the mental health first aid course trains people, everyday people, to be aware of the signs that someone around them is struggling. So it really sits in with what you're talking about. But one of the things that we learn in there is when somebody is suicidal, they don't actually really want to die. They just don't know how to live anymore. And I thought, that's an important thing, isn't it?
That's so true. It's interesting what you were saying about the mental health first aid course. I've heard a lot about these courses, and I've enrolled to do one myself. And that's just one of the things that we can do. Anybody can enroll on one of these courses.
Yes.
But I think it doesn't have to be that. It's just being more aware and opening up about the subject. Because I think there's still a long way to go. I mean, we, for example, I don't know, how things are in Australia, but we still use the phrase in this country, commit suicide.
We don't use that over here anymore.
No, well, I know in the mainstream media we don't, but still, it's very common currency for people to use the phrase commit suicide.
Yeah.
And as you know, in this country anyway, that the illegal status of suicide was lifted in 1961, and here we are, more than 60 years later, still using the language of the Dark Ages. I know now how hurtful and inaccurate that is, because whoever Ross was and whatever he stood for, he didn't commit a crime. I'm not judgmental. I understand it's what we're sort of brought up to say in this country. It's just common language, but I think it's time to stop.
Yeah, because people that take their life, they're ill. They're not actually in their right mind at the time when they do that. So, like you said, it's a sickness of the mind, and impairment is they're impaired in their cognitively impaired at that moment. Their judgment.
Absolutely, and I think that to use that sort of phrase in the same way that, we use it in relation to sort of murder, or, commit murder or whatever, it's outrageous in a way that we're still sort of using that language. And I can hardly believe that in my lifetime in the UK, that people who tried to take their own lives and survived could be and were put in prison. And
Admirable, isn't it?
isn't it, what kind of a society were we? And occasionally I'd get the odd message on social media telling me that it's a sin, and, that I shouldn't be talking about it, and I shouldn't expect anything for Ross other than, the yeah. So anyway,
Obviously by people that have no empathy whatsoever.
no, fortunately, those people are in, a tiny, tiny minority. And I have to say, that of all the people who've reached out, and all the people who've expressed support, it's been incredible and, very heartening to hear from people all over the world who support what I and many others like me are trying to do. That's been really encouraging.
Yeah. And it's so great that Ross is going to live on in your little grandson.
Yeah, Charlie is. Yeah, he's very much like his dad. He looks like him, and we see a lot of Ross in him, a lot of the sort of positive things, and
Yeah.
he's a sort of huge comfort. And I'm off to see him tonight, so
That's great.
really looking forward to it.
Mike, just before we wrap up, I just would love to know, so other than the group that you are meeting up with and talking about things, what are some of the strategies that have helped you through this last year? For anybody out there who's in the early stages of grief, what are some of the things that have helped you get through?
I think talking, different people react in a different way. So, even within my family, there are people who don't approach it in the same way that I do. I'm a big believer in talking about things, being open and transparent about things, always have been. It's one of the things that was the bedrock, if you like, for the job that I used to do in journalism. It's something that I sort of, transparency and openness is something that I really believe in. You have to respect the way that other people deal with their own grief. Not everybody wants to talk about it. And again, I understand that. I really do. And I try to respect other people and how they process their grief. Setting up the talk club that I mentioned earlier, I'm a sort of an organizer and a facilitator, but I'm also a participant. I take part and I benefit every bit as much as any of the other guys do. So that's been really helpful for me. And it sounds like a really simple thing and a bit of a cliche. You hear it all the time, but it's nonetheless true. Be kind to yourself. And I think, if you have a day when you're inexplicably sad, allow yourself to be, allow things just to be. You're allowed to smile, you're allowed to laugh, and you're allowed to cry. And I think basically for me, friends and neighbors and all the support that I've had has made a huge difference. I always used to sort of used to think in journalism, when I had to cover a tragic story, and I had to cover so many tragic stories over the sort of 40 odd years that I was in journalism, and I never sort of really knew quite what to say to those people who were grieving. And I always used to think, well, they don't know me, I'm just a sort of journalist. Nothing I can say is going to help them. But now I realize that, the support does matter. Nothing's ever going to bring Ross back. And, there's a huge challenge, a huge hurdle to try to get through for the rest of my life. And I know that, but hearing support and goodwill from people does make a difference, and it does lift your heart. And Yeah, sorry, that was a long answer, but
No, it was lovely to listen to that. Thank you.
thank
Have
you.
you had a particular light bulb moment through this last year that's really impacted you?
I think I don't know whether I'd describe it as a light bulb moment. One of the things that I keep coming back to over and over again is Ross's letter and Ross's words. If there's a light in my life, it's the words that he left for me and for the family. And yeah, just sort of trying to appreciate, you were asking about what kind of person Ross was. And every time I think about that, either as a boy or as a man, I smile.
Yeah.
And again, that's sort of, there hasn't been, if I'm being perfectly honest, there hasn't been a moment of revelation in which I've thought, this is how I should be, or this is how the world is, or this is how I can handle this. It goes very much in waves. I find that you can wake up one morning, the sun is shining, and you can feel temporarily okay, and then for no apparent reason, a wave can come from nowhere. There are so many triggers. I mentioned earlier the garden and images of Ross playing in the garden, and we still live in the same house. And when I go into the garden now, I can't do that without thinking about Ross. We had 3 children, and we planted a tree when each one of them was born, and of course Ross's tree is still there in the garden and continues to grow. So it's a constant reminder. But I would say to anybody else who may find themselves in this position, just cling on to hope, share what you're going through, and if anything, it's made us closer as a family. I guess there's always going to be that sadness, but we still have each other.
Yeah. Mike, what would be your final message for the world, or yours and Ross's message for the world?
I think wake up to the seriousness of suicide. Accept the facts that are out there. We're losing so many good people. 800,000 people approximately around the world every year. 800,000 people. If this was anything else, we'd be talking about it. We'd be hearing about it. And it's almost like we don't want to accept the truth. Well, we have to, because it's not changing. And I think if Ross were sitting here by my side now, I think that he would very much want to share and emphasize that message that, if we don't even talk about it, this isn't going to get any better. So let's open up the conversation and let's get those figures down. Let's work towards a zero suicide world. We may never get, but if we aim for it, we're going to get a lot closer than if we don't even try.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for being the voice of hope for all those families out there going through this. And let's hope that we can get the Baton of Hope over to Australia. And it's been an absolute honour to talk with you tonight, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to Humans of Hope Inspiring Stories with Kerrie Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leave a rating and review on your podcast player. Thank you to Matthew Bliss for podcast production and consultation, and to Kintsugi Heroes for making this podcast possible. If you'd like to find out more about Kerrie Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find out where her next event is taking place. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.